the Junk Parlor, and I have my shades on because it's crazy bright, and I thought that I might be able to read comments a little bit better with my sunglasses on. I don't think that's the case though. But I am in my garage. I backed my truck up halfway into the garage so that I could use the tailgate as a table for this DIY. So hopefully it's not shaking the tripod a whole bunch. But I just got done watching or skimming through quickly my old DIY corn stalk wreath video. It is posted on YouTube. It's on Facebook, but I don't know how you would even go back and find it, although you could search it. And that was one of the first DIYs I did 3 years ago. So I have been making these corn stalk wreaths every year, making one or two at least, and selling them in the shop or using them in my home. And I just thought that I would make them again. The video quality on my video 3 years ago was probably not as good as it would be today. So I'm too far from the phone to read comments, and I probably can't see the comments anyway. Facebook does not like to show me comments when I'm live for whatever reason. So if you are here watching, please let me know. And remember, if you can sprinkle and tell your friends, it is always very appreciated by myself and any small business to share the love, to spread it around. So probably the biggest question I get about these corn stalk wreaths is the wreath form. So I have over here on the wall like what I consider the normal wreath form. Let me grab that real quick. Like, I feel like this style of a wreath you can get anywhere, right? They have like the multiple wires. They're just very common. But the wreath form that I used for this project has what I call little teeth, little like clips where you can just bend them and hold together the corn stalks on the wreath. Okay, so this one you can see it's all bent and weird and crazy, and the reason is because it's a reused one. So this style of wreath form seems to be very common for, is my tripod, does it keep lowering? It seems to be very common for evergreen wreaths. I feel like it's sliding down a little bit. And so if you get a wreath that has the evergreen on it, you know, your typical Christmas wreath, and the evergreen starts to brown up or whatever, don't just pitch it. Unclip all of those little teeth so that you can do this wreath. Now, you could totally use the other kind. Okay, you could totally use this kind. However, it just requires more work. These are easy. You just pinch them and they're good to go. And I even have this ginormous wreath, okay, which is probably twice the diameter of the other wreaths, if not more. And this is just one that had evergreen on it at Christmas time, and I saved it. So sometimes it pays to recycle. Now, these are new. The problem is, and the reason why everybody asks me about these wreath forms is because I bought, 3 years ago, I bought a box at Joann's of this style with the teeth. And then guess what? Joann stopped selling them. So I don't know if Joann sells them now. I don't think they do. And Amazon is always out. So there are a couple of retailers or whatever you call them that do provide this wreath ring, but they're almost always sold out. So if you can ever buy some, buy more than you think that you want. They don't take up a lot of space. You can hang them in your garage like I do, and that way you have them on hand when you need them. And the only problem with using some of these old ones, this one is actually thicker wire than the brand new ones, which is fine, as long as you can do it by hand. But sometimes these, because if they have evergreen on them, they're probably outside. And so what happens is when you're smushing these, they sometimes break right off because they're very brittle. So that is kind of an FYI on those. So when you are on Amazon, the other thing to remember is that there are some that I have ordered before that are like the thickest wire in the world, and you cannot manually do it by hand. And if the reason we're using this wreath is because it makes the project quick and easy, then trying to use pliers, a hammer, put your whole body weight into it, stomp on them, that defeats the purpose. So just make sure you really read when you get these. And I will try and link, if I have a link of one that's not sold out, I will try and link it here in the comments afterwards. The only other things that you need are some string, which I grabbed some out of my stash. Sometimes this baler twine that I call it, it rips, so I'm not sure if this is good or not. You need scissors. And if you didn't have any twine or string, you could use baker's twine, you could use floral wire. You really don't even need it, probably. I just like it. I think it helps make the process a little bit smoother. And either I'm losing my mind or my phone keeps tilting lower and lower. But that's okay, because that gives you a surface area to watch. So I'm gonna cut before we, and the main thing you need is some corn stalks. So I went back to Centerville this weekend, and the corn mom, I had told her to keep an eye on it for me, because the key with getting the leaves for your wreath, you don't want them to be green. I mean, they can be a little bit green, but the key is not to be green. So they need to be dried, but you don't want them to be dried for so long that they've had a lot of rain, or even if it hasn't been very long and they've had a lot of rain, they kind of get speckled, like mildew looking. They're browner. So if you have watched the old video that I did, those couple wreaths, some of them were pretty brown, and that's why. I think that it had, they looked good one day, you get rain, and then the next day they don't look so good anymore. And that's just what happened. The green ones will eventually brown up, but it does take them a while. So when I have ones that have green in them, I try to evenly space them around the wreath, so it's not like a section of green, everything else is brown. Try and sprinkle them in throughout the wreath. Now, the reason I say you don't really need to have the twine is because I like to bundle 10 leaves, tie them together, and then pinch them in here. But I could really just put a bundle of 10 leaves in my hand and then pinch them in here, okay? So it's an extra step, but I think it just helps with it being secure, especially if you're gonna put this outside. They can, blow in the wind. You know how your porch or your front door gets a wind gust, and you don't want it to totally ruin what you've done, okay? So I did it more just for longevity, I guess. So I don't know if you can see, right here I have a bunch of leaves, and I did, let's see, what was the date? Let me squat down here a little bit. I ripped these off on Sunday, and it is Wednesday. So normally what I do is I cut the whole stalk down. I give Dad the corn for the cows. I put the stalks by my house, even though they don't have leaves, or I put them in a nail keg or something. I use them for some fall decor. And then I take the leaves off for the wreath. This time I didn't want the stalks, I didn't want the corn. I was just literally getting enough so I could do a wreath for myself. And so I went out there and Cash and I just ripped off some leaves, left the stalk standing. I did grab some tassels off of the ones that had fallen over, either from wind or raccoons, because you can sprinkle those in, which in the past I never really did. I would take all the tassels and put them in a vase because I thought that looked really pretty. So you can sprinkle in your tassels into your wreath and give it a different look. You can also leave the corn on. So I have seen them with the corn on. I just chose not to do that because it makes it extra heavy. And so, you know, depending on where you're hanging it, you don't need that extra weight. So that's kind of the process. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go through here. And these leaves are very long, okay? The camera's kind of low. But we don't need that much, so I want mine to be able to go in the inside. And so I'm just gonna basically line the bottom up. This is the section that was wrapped around the actual stalk. So I'm just gonna line the bottom up. I'm gonna do about 10 because that's what I did last time, or every other time I've done it. And then I will kind of decide the length that I want to cut them. So a lot of this is gonna go to waste per se. You can always take the bottom half that gets cut, stick it in a vase, stick it in a crock and do something different with it. Mix it in with some of your faux greenery, fall foliage if you want to as well. So I think there are like 10 teeth and we want 10 leaves per thing. So that means that we needed about 100 leaves. So hopefully I got that many. And the leaves are always going to be different. So sometimes they are really short, skinny, twisted. Sometimes they're going to be really tall. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. I think this is about the length that I want to go. So I'm gonna tie it to get me the length. So that gives me what, less than 2 foot of leaves to go on the end. When you cut your twine, if you cut your twine like I was doing, cut it extra long so that it's easy to knot it and tie it in your bundle. I know sometimes I try to be skimpy and then I'm like spending an hour trying to get the little ends of the twine to actually fit around whatever I'm tying. So I'm cutting the twine off just because I don't need extra dangling. And then I'm literally gonna take those scissors and just cut the bottom off. So really this would look great in a picture. But you can take, even though these are abruptly cut off, if you have them in a pitcher or a crock at varying heights, they're gonna look good too. You could even shove them in a dough bowl or a wooden bowl, just like you would Spanish moss, and then fill it with antlers or horns and pumpkins and whatever. You get the idea. So I think I'm gonna just make a mess in the garage, throw those on the ground, and then I will pick them up later. Okay, when I see a tassel, I'm gonna separate that out. I could put the tassel in with my mix, but I think I'm gonna separate them out and then add it to the top so that I know it's visible, it's not covered up by other leaves when I am putting my wreath together. That way too, I kind of know how many tassels I have, so I know I can evenly space them out. So right now I'm just laying this bundle next to the other bundle so that I know I'm tying it at the same spot approximately. Here's that little thing that I said not to do, so I need to throw that away so I don't grab it again. so that I can bundle them up at the same spot. And I think just, even though this is an extra step, I think it makes it easy to assemble, because then I'm not stopping, counting. I can just grab a bundle and go. There's really no reason to have these ends. If you do too long of an end past the twine, then it gets in the way of the next teeth. And so then you are basically double filling that tooth with the end of the previous one and then the one you're actually doing. Oh, I was talking to you about time. So I did this on Sunday, and then I wanted to get it done today. I really should have probably done it before, because the longer these sit, the more brittle they get. So I have kept mine year to year, like for my own house, and just like hung it up on a hook, hung it up on a nail in the basement. And what happens is, you know, now it's still kind of flexible. It's not too bad, but the longer it sits, the more brittle it gets. So the harder it is to work with. The nice thing about the green ones is that they tend to be a lot more flexible. So if you did take them off when everything was pretty green, those would be very easy to work with, because they are so flexible and not brittle and gonna break or anything. So we've done 3, that's 6, 7, 8, 9, let's do one big long one. So I think we decided there was 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So once I get that, those all tied up, then we know we have the right amount. Some of my tassels have some leaves stuck to them, some of them don't. I'm gonna wait to decide what to do with those once we start our assembly. But I mean, wouldn't those in a crock or a pitcher or a nail keg, just the tassels look great? Okay, so I'm setting it next to the one we did to start with, just so I can get an approximate length to be very similar. I'm tying it, and I try and tie it as tight as I can. If these leaves have been sitting for a long time, there's a chance that when I tie them, it could just break because they get brittle. A whole bunch. Here's one that's the green. It's just a little bit different. So why would you want to put it inside versus outside? So inside, they're not getting wet and getting discolored from the rain. They're not getting hit with a bunch of wind. So those are a couple of reasons to put these inside. I have hung them over a chalkboard, window. You can put them over like a picture frame. But of course, they're a lot easier to put inside if you have a smaller wreath or a larger space to put it. And just from sitting in the tote, can you see how those are kind of curved right there? They must have been a little bit wet or soft or flexible when I put them in the tote. And so then what hung over the end basically took that shape as it dried the last couple days. I mean, this is messy, but not crazy messy. So that one had a big tassel on it, so now we're back to, I gotta recount 5. And when you're doing wreaths, you really kind of got to be flexible because we have no control over which way the leaves are curved or turned or, you know, anything like that with the structure. Just got to be flexible. So the goal is to make it look symmetrical even though it's not going to be identical. And you might be wondering, like, Brooke, where did you get this idea back, you know, when you first did it? And I got it because wherever people do tobacco leaves, where is that, like, down south, somebody had wreaths made out of tobacco leaves, and they looked awesome. And I'm like, you could totally do that with corn leaves off the stalk. And so I decided to give it a try. I had my girlfriend, who's a florist, make one, and just see what she came up with. And then we took what she learned while she was making it, and I came up with a different method because, you know, she had some skills that I didn't, having made wreaths in the florist shop. I had not ever made a wreath. And so, you know, I just did it a not wreath maker way, DIY. Okay, looks like we need one more. So I did show you, you know, what the green looked like. This one has the tassel on it. So that's the leaf green. It will eventually brown even though I've removed it from the stalk. This is not even a good example of what happens when they sit and they get rain. But I don't know if you can see, there's like just kind of some little mildewish, some little dots on there, and it just gets a little bit browner. So the longer it's in rain like that, then that happens. But see, this one was in the bottom of the tote. Look how curved it is. So you could totally, you know, influence your leaves a little bit, if you got them cut off or ripped off the stalk and then, you know, shaped them a certain way. Like I saw a girl, what was she doing? Oh, she was doing some kind of wreath. She used a curling iron on the corn stalks. Now, I don't know if hers were ones that she took off of the stalk or if they were, you know, you can go buy the packets of corn stalk leaves from like Joann's or Michael's or something. But she was using a curling iron. Okay, I'm gonna grab a couple more tassels that I see here just so I at least have them here to look at. This one I got a long chunk. It must not have been wanting to rip very bad because I have like half the stalk. And whatever tassels I don't put in the wreath, like I said, I like the way they look, or even just small leaves like this, put with it and put it in a crock or vase or something, pitcher. And the leaves that I don't use, I am obviously going to save. And then, I don't know, this one's bent a little bit. Because then I can just put the leaves in a little crock with or without tassels, or I can make a smaller wreath. I can count how many leaves I have and then go ahead and use what I do have. Okay, so here's where I always talk about, like to my Staging Your Antique Shop group, things maybe you think are willy-nilly are just random. They look, maybe they're random. They're not a lot of times. Like, there is a method to making things look random, making things look messy. And it is an art. So some people can just look at things and turn one thing over and move it just at a certain angle, and voila, it really looks good and makes that piece come to life. And that's kind of how it is on the wreath assembly. You're wanting it to be somewhat symmetrical, and so when you are placing your little leaf bundles, you need to take that into consideration. So here, what I did, a 1.5 foot maybe, are my bundle lengths. And then I'm just gonna take my wreath. I'm hoping you can see okay because I can hardly see the camera. But we're going to pick where we're gonna start, and we're gonna lay where I tied the twine in, basically right at those grabbers, right at those teeth. And so the other thing to think about is I'm going to line this bundle up so that the end goes to about the next set of teeth. Because I'm not gonna clip things in so it goes off straight. I'm gonna clip things in so it goes off at a curve, if that image even helped or made sense, I'm not sure. So I'm putting the twine in there where I wanna clip it. I'm basically keeping the corn stalk in line with the back wreath circle, the back wire. And then I'm gonna fold those wires. That's why this is so wonderful, because they're flexible. And I could have torn off a wire, I could have torn off twine. Twine eventually would probably rot. But that would be just another step, and then you'd have to get them all lined up, and then you'd want to slide on your circle. So you do the teeth, and then you can do the teeth again and wrap them around. So I wrapped it around just because I could. Some bundles are going to be so fat you can't do that. Some bundles are going to be like this. I don't think with my little fingers I can make it so it's not pointy, okay? But I can come back and curve that a little bit with some pliers so that if it's hanging against a chalkboard, it's not scratching it, or hanging against a drywall, it's not scraping my paint off, or, you know, ruining the outside of your house or whatever. The other thing that you can see is that, see the circle for the wreath and how I attached the leaves, they're lined up together. So that's what I'm gonna do with the next one, is line it up with that back circle, line my twine up, and when you do that, it just kind of naturally goes over the one in front of it and covers up this part. So we're lining it up with the circle, we're putting the twine in our teeth, and then it's pretty much covering up the one before it. And it doesn't have to cover it up perfectly, because I'm telling you, you can kind of twist and manipulate some leaves after you get it in there. And you can also just step back, because a lot of times when you step back, you can't even see, you know, what you did. You can see on that one, it is getting a little bit brittle, so it did break a little bit, but I think I have enough of a base holding on there that it's gonna be okay. So twine goes where the teeth are. I'm kind of lining my leaves up to that bottom circle. And then I can just grab a bundle. I'm not bending over and counting. I've talked about this before. And then when you're putting them in, you're gonna turn them at different ways so that it looks better, it makes sense. But I am all about batch work. I'm all about bundling. If I have 5 pieces of furniture that need painted, well, I might as well paint them all the same color and paint them all at the same time, or do 2 different colors. You know, get your paintbrushes out at the same time, have your paint clothes on at the same time type of concept. And then we just keep working around. And I can tell already that my old lady fingers are getting sensitive to all of the pushing of the wire. So if I needed to, I could wear gloves, because that would help. It's just one of those things, like if you're pushing on the same spot over and over again, if you've ever tried to push a thumbnail into drywall, it should be super easy. But sometimes you just keep pushing and pushing, and then your fingers hurt. That repeat pressure. So here's what we've got going so far. You can kind of see that, up close, maybe you can see some of the teeth that I might need to go in with some pliers later on and bend those, fold those up. But you seriously just keep working in a circle. You don't want to switch and come down here where we started. You want to just stay in your lane, stay in the same system, the same rotation. And yes, it does get a little more complicated as we get to the end, because we have the corn leaves hitting us in the face. But we can do it. Okay, so we're at the last one, and I'm going to do it basically the same way as I have been. I want my twine to be where the teeth is. I want my leaves to be angled so it looks like it's going in a spiral or a circle. And you know what I forgot to do? Forgot to add in the darn tassels. And so the other thing is, on this last one, is that then we want to tuck it in to the first one we did, because we don't want this just randomly sitting on top. We want to tuck it in behind that first one. So we get it in there. I'm going through the teeth, past the teeth, tuck it under the first one that we installed, and then I'm twisting my wire. And then we have an awesome wreath, and then you can change, rotate where you want to hang it, because sometimes, you know, it looks good, and I can't even see the darn screen. It looks good, you know, maybe hanging one way, but it doesn't look good hanging the next way. So you just kind of play with it and pick what you want to be the top. And it also helps you as far as disguising, knowing what you need to disguise. So for me, this one right here is pretty visible. So I either need to reshuffle the wire teeth. I could maybe just move some leaves. Okay, and then I can also take that into consideration when I add in my tassels, because most of the tassels are going to have some kind of leaf with them. That one does have some green on it. And you can always just go in with a little chunk of leaf and cover something up if you need to. So we would definitely need to cut these down. This is way too long to tuck in, but I could take one without any leaves, and that seems to be the right length. So since we have the teeth, I can do a couple things. One, I could lift up the teeth and put it in there. Two, I could tuck it into the leaves that we already have going on, because there's like little pockets. We could take some floral wires and do it. But I honestly think just tucking it in, it's feeling really secure. So you kind of just have to, I don't know, go with your gut. I can feel the tension when I'm squeezing it, because remember, not only are we using those wire clips, but we are also, we also did twine on all of them. So I'm gonna try and go back, find, that one is crazy tight. Trying to go back, find the teeth, tuck it in. Again, working at an angle. So basically, if I do it right, I should have how many? I should have 10 tassels tucked in here. If I get into each of the little teeth. I am making them a little bit shorter because I don't want them to tuck through the complete backside. So really this might have been a better way to do it anyway versus working them in. But then you can do whatever you want. You could hang it with a chunk of burlap, you could hang it with some twine if you want something to be visible. If I bend the stem when I'm putting it in, I have enough that I can just grab something else. Probably why I love the Corn Stalk Wreath so much is because it's neutral. And while I love my green, I love neutral. So often people are wanting to embellish things, and you know, to me, sometimes things just don't need any embellishment. Okay, that one's pretty folded up, so I'm going to skip that one. And if you don't have good scissors, you could always use some garden shears. So always remember just to be flexible when you're doing these DIY projects. I always like to do a couple. So you do one, and then you learn from your experience. And then when you make another one, you have learned from your mistakes, so you know what to do. So let's just count. It doesn't really matter. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think. So I'm missing one somewhere. That one I got. I think we're missing it right here. No? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got 10. Okay, so see how adding the tassels just added a little bit of texture variation, just changed it up a little bit. And here's what the back side looks like. So if you don't have corn in your backyard, I don't have corn in my backyard anymore, maybe you know somebody and you can just ask them if you can go rip off some leaves, or when they're getting ready to harvest, if you can go rip off some leaves, because it makes a great decor. And I love this one because it is petite. So just cut those leaves down to make a smaller wreath, and I will link the wreath forms, and hopefully they're not all sold out. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys have a great week, and I appreciate you. And like I mentioned earlier, be sure to sprinkle and show me some love, because it really does help make my page more visible. And any small business that you follow, the more you interact, the more it helps them, and we appreciate it. So thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.